Hi all, welcome to week 7 after 1 week break. Wasn't long enough to do much at all except get back into work. And also at the end of week 6 an assignment was due, so it wasn't much fun at all. Um, the we're striving and walking towards an assignment in week 10. This week what we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about resources and the final report. They add towards your week 10 assignment. Some of the things that will, especially that evaluation, so that final report that you'll be asked to do in week 10. I'll be talking briefly about the week 10 assessment, but I'll also be going through the PowerPoint today and just highlighting it. There's 25 slides, a couple of things to watch, not too long, 2-minute YouTube, 4-minute YouTube, but more so just some understanding about what we need to do, what resources are, and preparing for evaluation / final report. I'll start at the beginning, which is always good. Oh, my goodness. You know what I didn't do? I did not share the screen. That always helps. Now, hopefully, just a thumbs up from Stacey, who I can see. If you've got that, yep, beautiful thing. We are sharing the screen now. So for those who are watching tonight and viewers at home, we should have the start of program planning, resource and final report up. So I'm nearly there. Sorry, my friends.
Sorry, Mark, just a quick thing. I had a look this evening for the PowerPoint. Was it in the class space or was it in the discussion forum? Because I couldn't seem to find it.
Oh, it's in the PowerPoint. It will be uncovered. I've got it there, but I hide it. And when I come up to the week, I pop it up. So I will unhide it after this session. And so there will be a copy, if that's all right. But I'm glad you're having a look, Stace. That's great.
No problem.
So what we're looking at is what is an easy process to read a report? What do we need to include in our final report? A quick look at what are resources and a bit about how you can locate resources. We'll also hopefully we'll develop a bit of a deeper understanding of these and how to start planning a report. But, you know, really it's just about to get your mind in focus what an evaluation report can do. I mean, we'll talk about it later on, but really, because we have Google at our fingertips, a lot of these resources are made quite easy for us. The real challenging thing about Google, I find, is that it's all out there, but everyone wants you to pay for resources. So it's finding good resources that are cheap to use. My advice in some of those resources, if you look for not-for-profit resources, you'll probably find a lot of ready-made templates, reports and things that may assist you now and into the future, and they will be for free. And so it's acknowledged in the not-for-profit sector that there's not a lot of money going around. Even in funding, if you apply for grants, etc., you know, we're still really scraping the bottom of the barrel to run any program or deliver anything. I mean, you know, it is worldwide that people who work in normally the not-for-profit sectors, you know, don't earn huge amounts of money, but, you know, it is rewarding work and it is fairly specialised and not everyone can do this type of work. So I suppose hopefully the project management and program planning that you're learning is fairly universal, whether you're using not-for-profit, whether you're using local government, state government, all these areas, you'll find these skills are very transferable and valuable to know. So, what are resources? So, some of the things we're going to look at today is, you know, some resources are very complex and some are quite simple. And I suppose with some of those, you you obviously this will produce a much more efficient utilisation of specific resources in question, as will be available for other activities at a time when it has not been allocated to a particular activity. The alternative resource can be considered simple. That is, once it has been allocated to an activity or task, it is used continuously for the entire duration. So simple, it can always be used. Complex, it might only be used as a one-off for certain parts of an activity. Project management. So how to manage resources, 4 minutes. It's really easy. It's actually talks about an organisation and talks about a system of how, and it's just an example of a particular, I suppose, database that can be utilised to track anything you're doing with a particular project. But I'll put it front and centre, and I'll turn the volume up so we can all hear it.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Witt, Director of ProjectManager.com. Well, welcome to our whiteboard session today on resource management tips. What I want to share with you today are 6 tips that I found that have been helpful in managing resources for my project. So number 1, allocating time per project. So many times we have resources or people who are assigned to not only our project, but other projects. And the failure becomes when we try to allocate them 100% on our project when they're spread across multiple projects. So it's important to allocate time per project, either in a percent and convert that to hours that you can assign them on your project. Therefore, you prevent allocating 100% of their time on your project when they're spread across multiple projects. Number 2, block out unavailable time. So the people on your team are not available 100% of their time, even if they're allocated to your project. They're out for meetings or vacation or any other times they may be out of the office. It's important to block that time out on their schedule so they're not assigned critical deadlines or times due during the times that they're out. Number 3, execute a risk plan for your critical resources or your critical people who are assigned on your project. Many times a critical person on your project may be reassigned to a higher priority project or taken off or for some reason not available on your project. So it's important to implement the risk plan for those specific people, to identify who they are and a risk plan in case something happens to the critical people. Many times we have to go back and update the estimates because if you reassign someone else who may not be as seasoned, experienced, or knowledgeable about the type of work they're doing, it's going to impact the estimate. So it's important to re-estimate and calculate for the resource that's coming in. Number 4, require real-time time tracking in order to avoid delayed guesstimates or swags to your project that can definitely throw off your timeline. So get your people in the habit of tracking their time real time and give them the tools and accessibility to the project and so that they can update those easily. Number 5, recognize bottlenecks and adjust quickly. A lot of times you may have people working on your project who are bogged down for some reason. Maybe they're stuck on a problem or an issue that can't be resolved, so they keep working it, and so maybe they haven't asked for help or indicated they're having a problem. So it's important to watch your resources, watch the time, how they're working, and avoid any bottlenecks and get them help quickly. Number 6, utilize systems to guide you in the management of your project, in the management of your resources, instead of punishing the people on your team. So some systems that people use are red, yellow, and green dashboards, but the team members are in fear of the red, yellow, and green. So if these systems are used to punish resources who maybe their items are in red, maybe if those dashboards or systems are used to punish, they may not indicate their status correctly. They may indicate everything's green or okay, so they won't get in trouble. instead of, if they're used properly, to help manage the project, address any issues or risk or escalate in a timely manner. If you use those properly, then the team will have the trust and in order to report things accurately. And so these are 6 tips that I found that are helpful in managing the resources on my projects, and I hope they'll help you too. If you need any tips, tools, or technique.
Okay, so really, that was just about a particular program. You could find any, and really any, I suppose, tips or methods to manage resources. The easiest one for me, as I mentioned before I started recording, is a Gantt chart, a basic Gantt chart, G-A-N-T. It's a really easy way to spread out what your project needs, what points you're at in your project when you plan it out over a period of time, and when you need to allocate resources such as people, it might be assets that you put in, money, whatever it might be, to get that going, and then you start to work it out. It's a really simple tool. If you search Gantt charts online, you'll find some free ones and project Gantt charts and some tips on how to use these effectively. You'll probably find that you'll do that really well. It is something that we need to understand. It is not as complex as you might feel. And once you get into it, you'll go, this is quite simple. It's just like using a calendar in Outlook, except it's specifically built to manage projects. And that's what a Gantt chart's supposed to do. That's how I look at it. So have a look at those as you're going through your searching. So what sorts of resources will you need? So obviously, and just as I touched on a bit then, people, and to get a project running, especially if it's a community development project, it's people power. If you've got people and you're allocating tasks to those people, that's what's in most cases going to make your project tick over. The skill sets that those people have are part of that resource allocation. So understanding the people you have, what skill sets they have, are probably really important. The other things that you'll need to understand is, do you have an office or a space where people can meet? What's the funding like? Do they need a computer, access to the net? I dare say yes. And any other resources that you start to consider along with that. Could be administration, stationery, the list goes on and on. You kind of have to be across thinking, what are all the absolute things you need, and when do I need to inject them into the process? The start, the middle, all the way through, when is all that? So that's what we start to think about. As I touched on earlier on as well, even on the internet, there's a heap of stuff there, and it's really changed. I mean, I suppose when I started working in this sector, we had the internet, but it was so rudimentary. You wouldn't trust what was on there, or couldn't really find anything. Skip forward, nearly 20 years of me working in this sector, and I just a couple of taps on Google, bang, I've got everything. The only thing is, most of the stuff you have to pay for, so it's about finding things that are for free. But it is amazing how many things are out there. YouTube continues to amaze me on a daily basis. Everyone wants to be a movie star and show you how to do things. You type in how to create a project in YouTube, you've got about 20 million people trying to tell you, this is the best way I know how to do a project. So the resources of teachers, and it's all there. So it's really rich in examples, and I think that's the great thing about the internet. Just a picture of Google, and if no one is familiar with that, my goodness. So now we're just going to talk about an example of electronic resources, but really it's just getting you to think about, and for those SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so we're going to be talking about strengths and weaknesses here and use an example of electronic resources. But when you think about any project that you're doing, before you start your project, and also as part of the old adage, always begin with the end in mind. You're trying to work out what any particular project, what would their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats be, your SWOT analysis. To do that for your project really keeps you ahead of the curve. And really what you're trying to do is mitigate any issues that may occur. When I say mitigate, it's stop them from happening or try and pre-think them. An example that we're using here is some strengths and weaknesses for using the internet. And so in this particular case, in using the internet, there's a huge range of information available, 8 billion web pages, 20,000 journals, I think it'd be more than that, timely, up-to-date information and sources. It's value-added functionality because it's got a lot of search abilities, additional skills development that you find there. On the other side, on weaknesses, there's a lot of technical barriers. You need computers, network connections, you need software sometimes. There can be some infrastructural problems, bandwidth and telecommunication issues, unreliable electricity supplies. Not so bad here in Australia, really. Skills and training requirements sometimes for certain data packages, we might not understand them, and costs can be high, technology and content, etc. Thinking about resources, what else can we, and what you might have, and strengths and weaknesses. The main questions asked is the strengths, how can it assist us? How will it improve the quality of your program or event? How will it assist in the overall aim or goal? When we think about strengths of any resource, we need to kind of, or program that you're going to do, you need to really, it's always, I always find it's really good to sit down with a group of people who may be involved in the project, because that think tank, you get a lot of data coming out of it. And the same as the weaknesses. And you'll always, I suppose it's a funny thing with humans, if you get a lot of people in the room, they're really keen to run this project, you'll always get a lot more strengths and your weaknesses come out of that group. You probably get a bit, oh, there's not that many weaknesses, and so you really have to pull that information out of the group. But it's good to get that down, as I said, to understand the strengths and weaknesses of any project or resources that you might have really helps you outthink any problems that might go wrong. So getting people involved, how are you going to recruit people for your program or project? You'll need a plan of action. Try not to do it all by yourself. I think no one's an island. You need to make sure there's many people involved in any project. And you naturally find that there's people who like to work in groups, and naturally find there's people who like to work by themselves. The ones who work by themselves, they'll really stress out in big projects. So always make sure that you get other people involved in it. So within that, you need committed people, and you need those committed people to probably find other people who are committed as well. And so you've got a bunch of people that are committed to a project. This is hopefully what we're after. So stay on top of your resource allocation, and that's where, as I was talking about before, a Gantt chart with all your resources and how you've allocated them. So you need to know what's happening with those. That helps you do that. So resource allocation should be guided by 3 principles: create value for your clients, create value for your agencies, create value for your employees. Kind of quite simple, but if you're coming from, is it adding to all 3 of those participants, clients, the overall agency that you're working for, and the employees, then you really got a great, great guide. I don't mind that one at all. That's probably well put together. After you get, and now we're just talking about what do you do after you get, so you applied for a grant, and what do you do after you get your grant or your project money? So you start preparing for your project final report, right? And so this is what I was talking about. Always begin with the end in mind. And so take some steps to put that together and what your report might look like, how you're going to report on it. And if you've applied for a grant, you've got you basically you've told someone, this is what I'm going to do. This is my rough plan. Please give me some funding so I can go do it. So you've probably got an idea of what the outcomes will be. So you can start putting together that final evaluation plan, and at least it's not going to be a shock. By putting together that final evaluation plan, the bones of it, you know what data you're going to collect to evidence how well you are. And that's why you need to do it up front, probably at the start. So you track, and this becomes part of your Gantt chart tracking of success of your actual project. So begin with the end in mind always. Always make sure you know how you're going to measure the success and track the success of any project. So now this is just going through some nuts and bolts of, you know, what to do when you do any project. So obviously start electronic and or paper file. You'll need to gather all the paperwork, make sure, so that paperwork, all the information about the grant, the original grant application, the original grant application, the original grant proposal, sorry, I'm just getting people interrupting this session. I've just told them I'm busy on my phone. Apologies. The original grant proposal, the grant award letter. So when you receive your grant, you'll normally get a letter saying, congratulations, this is the best thing I've read ever. You've got the grant. And so, of course, you keep that. The grant contract. So sometimes there's a contract involved, and that might involve, you know, what you committed to, what you need to produce, what are some statistical information, how you need to equip the spending of the money. That's all in the contract. Any other correspondence. So all that goes into your main grant file. So you'll get a disbursement letter from the funder, and so that's dispersing the funds to you, saying, I've given you the money, here it is, my friend, it's gone into such and such account, etc. Any reimbursement requires, if applicable, proof of gifts, matching or challenge requirements, list of gift amounts and donors. So these are things you may or might not have in your project. Any copies of invoices, that one's absolute. Receipt for payments, copies front and back of any checks, etc., and a summary spreadsheet of the project, and this is the big one, showing all the income and expenses. So simple project budget Excel spreadsheets would be, you just keeping track of all the money in and how it's going out and where it's going to. That's going to help you. If you can show that acquittal form, then whoever your funding body is knows you're managing things above board. The other things are list of vendors, volunteers, project plans, scheduled documents, correspondence, meeting agendas and minutes all the way through, any information, marketing material, any descriptions of partner organisation electronic files of their logos, because as you create flyers, you always need all your partners' logos to put on the bottom of them, so you've got to have those ready to go. So plan to document the project. Don't wait till the end for the final report. So we're just coming back to make sure you have all the things you need to assemble your final report. And even if you're not doing a final report, always ensure that whoever has funded you, you have at least at a minimum, a nice thank you letter to go. Lots of photos. Make sure you have, when creating a report or evaluation report, photos are great. It's not only just words. I think, as the saying goes, a picture tells 1,000 words. So people who have funded you really like to see what's actually occurred. And so might even be short video clips. I don't know how groovy you want to make your presentation, but you know, if it's particularly photos in any report will help to at least say what's occurred and how happy people are that they might have participated in the event. So tell a story with those photos. Decide who's taking the photos. It might be all your workers, but allocate that. Make sure that you take lots of notes, and this will also help if you're reporting to managers or a board or a committee of management, that you make sure you put all these in a chronological order so you have them ready to go to pass on to people so people aren't confused. They're labelled, they actually state what's occurring sometimes, and then people will kind of understand the story that you're trying to tell. With any project and whatever we do, it's to say that any project will run smoothly is, I think, a fallacy. I think all projects are going to run fairly well. You've planned it, but there are always going to be speed humps or hiccups that occur. So it's all about how you probably outthink as many of these in doing your SWOT analysis: strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. It's also keeping track of where the project is. So is it falling behind on spec? Is it going over on budget? Do we have the right resources? If you're tracking it in that manner, in a Gantt chart type methodology, it starts to minimize these things. But if you're measuring your project quite closely on a daily or weekly basis, some of these things won't occur. And if they do, you'll be able to track them. So if there's a problem, you'll probably be able to track when the date of the project started to go off track, how the problem was identified and who found it. Most likely it might be you. Potential responses or solutions. And so if you've done a bit of a risk assessment in your SWOT analysis, you probably know what could go wrong, and you might have already thought of it. How long it's going to take to solve a problem, and any impacts they might have, and any impacts to budget with documentation of quotes, estimate, bids, and actual costs. And then if this project has happened in the past or anything like it, you might have some lessons learned from that you can apply to your project. Allow plenty of time for the final report. And so if you begin your project and you already know a lot of the structure of what your project will look like, and then you'll be able to walk into the final report without stressing, and you'll probably have all the foundation information to prepare a good, robust report, and plenty of time to do so. I think that the worst thing is you do a really good project and then you slap together a report quickly at the end. It doesn't do your project justice. So make sure that you put enough energy into the final report. And, this might be really good, because a good final report and evaluation that may go with it really shows how good your project is, and might allow you to run it again or indefinitely, or at least seek some other funding. You may have questions about the required format of contact. Try to get all your questions in and spend one concise list to the grants officer rather than multiple emails. Your performance, and this is about at the end of your project, any performance in terms of communication without the grants officer who you applied to is super important and tells them about you. Make sure the information you've provided with your grant report is organised and makes sense. So that story, how you've evidenced things, how you've shown how your project, and most of them do, has created social change, positive social change. So that's the story that you hopefully will talk about. Index page, if it's quite large report, depends on how thick it is or how thin, but at least an contents index page. Any annotations down the bottom, so footnotes, etc., that might explain things or where you get information from, evidence, and anticipate any questions that your funding body might ask you, and have those ready and built into your report. So if they haven't asked you those questions, what might they ask? So if your report covers everything that someone might question you about, you're probably in a good space. This is another YouTube clip about report writing. Only 2 minutes, very quick one. Very quick tips.
The report is
I'll just enlarge that.
the record of an investigation and the outcomes. There are many different kinds of reports, and they can be written for various purposes, such as documenting experiments and testing, presenting solutions to a problem, or helping to give recommendations.
Mastering report writing is key to your success at university and in the workplace. Here are some tips for writing good reports.
Analyze the brief to establish which type of report you need to prepare. Depending on the type of report, there are different ways to organize and sequence the information.
Identify the problem statement, which is the central question, hypothesis, or problem you're investigating. Follow this with some research questions or aims for your investigation.
Keep accurate records of all your readings and notes, such as your methods for collecting data, the data you collected, how you analyzed it, and your conclusions about the findings.
Establish a clear structure for the whole report. Drafting a table of contents will help you list your headings or topics and related subheadings in a logical order.
While writing each section, stay on track by revisiting the original brief and the original problem statement. This will keep your writing focused and relevant.
Clear visuals are important in reports. Make sure they are all linked to the text and have useful descriptive captions.
Carefully edit and proofread your report. The best writing comes from rewriting.
Feedback from peers can also be helpful.
If you need help with report writing, remember that the Learning Center has great online resources and offers workshops and individual consultations.
Well, there you go. So let's talk about next assessment. So this is due in week 10. So it's about collect materials of your event, flyers, videos, pamphlets, evaluation data from participants based on questions used in 2A, write an evaluation report using evaluative criteria used in 2A, and evaluation feedback gathered from participants, and plus recommendations for the future running of this program event and any changes you make along the way. Does anyone have any questions about some of that? And look, we're at week 7 now. I'm going to be talking about this next week as well, sharpening up. So next week is week 8, week 9, and then even in week 10 I'll be talking about it. So we're going to have another 3 opportunities to start sharpening this up. At this stage, it's about understanding what the assignment's about. Any questions, clarifying questions, start putting those on the table, and we'll start to dissect them, and we'll go through them as a group, if you like, or join a Zoom session so we can talk more about them live. I always find that the live sessions enable us to break down the assessment and into chunks where we can go, right, I get that, I get that, I get that, I'm on track here. And anything that you don't understand, we can really discuss it as a group. And so, again, the main thing is making sure that any anxiety that you have about completing this assignment is dissipated as we kind of get you prepped to submit a really good assignment to be. Stacey, question?
Yeah, I do. It works out literally by 1 day, so I might arrange to have an extension. My launch for my actual programs the day after week 10.
Oh, right.
My
Yeah.
week 10 assignments due, so then
That's fine. I'm happy to talk to you. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I'm happy to talk to you offline about all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And if it's only can work around that stuff. But
right.
Or content and your understanding, but all the other stuff, just talk to me offline. And we always happy, and just so everyone realises, when it just comes down to extensions, I can always offer 7 days very easily. I'd like you to be on time, of course, but then Circumstances always arise, and I understand that. But any more than 7 days, it is you have to fill out an assessment extension form, and then have that signed off and send it to the course coordinator and admin via your admin officer at ACAP in your state. And that way they will process that and grant you more. And I might ask for some more evidence about why you need a longer extension time than 7 days. And might be you'll just have to explain what that is. But for me, I've got the power, as they say, to just do 7 days straight off the bat, depending. And I'll listen to what the issue is, and I'm not that hard. I normally go okay. So
I
yeah.
do have another question. Sorry.
Oh yeah,
With
it's
the-
great.
Yeah, with the documentary materials of the event, obviously at my launch, I'm going to be advertising, putting up posters that it's happening and things like that. But then on the day, my in-kind resources that are going to be coming in from other agencies will also be providing materials for the event. So is that also included in the materials?
Yeah. So
Yeah, no problem.
will they be providing? So this is just so I can give you a very clear answer. You're not just putting a lot of stuff together. So all the materials of the event, you're saying that it is a nutrition type food event. Was that correct?
Yeah, it's a breakfast program we're going to be running, but it's going to be a healthy eating and healthy living
So
sort of information session on the launch day.
So other programs that are going to be attending will also bring pamphlets about their own programs to put on the table. Is that that type of material?
Yeah.
Well, you don't necessarily. You can have a couple of those, but really we're interested in what you've prepared, because you've brought them all together, and so your overall flyer and all that's the stuff that we need more so. What you've created for that particular event. They're just feeding in what they do as maybe specialised organisations that are invited on the day. You've brought them together, but it's your things that we need more so.
Yep.
How's that?
Yep. Perfect.
And so out of this, you've got 5 to 10 minutes on the reflective journal for everyone. If you can, so on the reflective journal in the class space, just what new information and strategies or idea have come up for you today? What sort of support or complex or simple resources you may need in your project? These are very quick questions. These aren't 100-word answers, just some very quick couple of lines. How would you work with others to capture evaluative material for your final grant report? How would you seek support from your supervisor in this stage of the project? You might not have a supervisor, so it might not be anything. And what policies and procedures in the workplace you're at, where you're running this project, and that of the funders would assist you in writing a final project report. And they might not have any. Google might be it. Just some thoughts in the reflective journal. That's it, my friends. Hopefully by next week, I'll be sitting here, and anyone who comes to the Zoom session, we'll be talking about how well you did in passing week 6, because I should have all the information together by then. And then really getting on to week 10 and prepping for it and making sure you've got everything together. But apart from that, that is the end of this week. I hope everyone's well. Thanks, Julie, for being with us. Thanks, Stace, for everyone else out in Zoom land. Hopefully you'll join us next week.